Welcome to Inside Independent Publishing with IBPA. I'm your host, Christopher Locke. I'm also the IBPA Director of Membership and Member Services. One quick reminder, we have IBPA Publishing University coming up. It's May 15th through 17th in St. Paul, Minnesota. We hope everybody comes. You're going to learn everything about how to thrive as a publisher, and it's an excellent place to connect with other fellow publishers. Learn more at publishinguniversity.org. Okay, now on to today's show. So Amazon is still the world's largest bookseller. So naturally, many independent publishers and author publishers want to know how they can succeed on the platform. Well, IBPA is always working to help indie publishers succeed and take their businesses to the next level. So we've invited Firebrand Technologies Director of Sales and Education, Joshua Talent, to share his expertise. He'll discuss how the Amazon search algorithms work to garner more exposure for your books, how Amazon sales ranks are calculated, share strategies for Amazon advertising, and a lot more. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you, Christopher. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And by the way, I do want to throw out there, you used to be on the IBPA Board of Directors.
So I was.
Yeah, you did a lot during that time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
And real quick, breaking news, at the end of this episode, we are going to tell everybody about Firebrand Technologies' new member benefits with IBPA. So listen up, wait for that. And we're not going to say anything more about it now. You're going to have to wait and find out.
Stick around.
Awesome. Okay. So something I wanted to start with is that a through line for our discussion today is about book metadata. So I just want to see, can you just explain in general, what is book metadata?
Yeah. So metadata is basically the information about your book, and it includes what you would normally think of, things like the title, the author's name, the price, the book description, that kind of stuff. But it also includes some things publishers or authors may not understand as well as metadata, like images, or even data that might be inside an EPUB file, right? There's a bunch of other data that's about your book. So anything that has to do with explaining what your book is, that would be considered metadata.
Okay. And we want to understand today, how does someone get that metadata to Amazon? And there are a lot of different methods, and we have people that are listeners that are independent publishers and author publishers, and sometimes there's different ways. So can you just give kind of an overview? What are some of the ways that people get their metadata to Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, a pretty common way is to use Amazon's built-in platforms. If you're a smaller publisher or an independent author, independent publisher, you're probably in the situation where Amazon doesn't want to work with you on an automated basis. They want you to go and manage your data with them directly. So they're going to give you access usually to KDP or to Amazon Seller Central. Those are pretty straightforward platforms to use. And so you can put your data into those systems. And I'm sure most of the people that are listening to the podcast have seen those systems before. Obviously, Ingram Spark is another option for getting your data into the Amazon system. If you're in the Spark system, it'll get the data there too. If you get into if you're a bigger publisher, if you get into kind of the mid-size or larger publishers, sometimes you might have other options available to you. Amazon Advantage is another program at Amazon that's available to some publishers, although they're pretty picky about who they let into that program. And Advantage is just gives you a little different approach. It's a different kind of selling approach with Amazon, and only for publishers and only within kind of a certain type of publishing arrangement. And then on the really big side, when you get into, I think Amazon requires like $10 million in sales or something to get into the Vendor Central program. Vendor Central is they're really more direct relationship programs. So the larger publishers will have access to that. The real benefit of Vendor Central is that then you can automate metadata feeds into Amazon. So you don't have to go into a platform interface and fill out a web page or something with information. It's all automated through Onyx, and delivery is a lot easier to do. So on the smaller mid-sized publisher size, unfortunately, most of the Amazon connection is either going to be through a third party like Ingram, or it's going to be directly in some sort of web interface on Amazon.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of there's like Publish Drive, Drafted Digital, BookBaby, StreetLib. And some of those, BookBaby, StreetLib, IBPA does, and Ingram Spark, IBPA does have member benefits for. But in Firebrand, y'all have like title management, and again, this is kind of when you have, a lot more books, but you all are able to also send like a feed through that to Amazon, right?
Yeah, well, it's not even just for larger publishers; it's for mid-sized and small publishers as well. So there's the Eloquence on Demand program, which hint hint we'll talk about later. That program is a metadata delivery service, and so if you have a Vendor Central account at Amazon, we could deliver to Amazon, but we also send data to over 600 other partners around the world. So any account that a publisher has, and doesn't matter how big a publisher is, typically I would say most publishers that are in the kind of 50 titles or more are a good kind of fit usually for the Eloquence program, just because of the cost and things like that. But when you have the titles that you want to send out to Bowker, you want to send them to Ingram, you want to put them into, send them to your distributor, to IPG or something like that. There's a bunch of options to send data wherever you need to send it. It's not just about Amazon in that situation. That's where a program like Eloquence is able to help you get that data anywhere that it needs to go.
Yeah, and the nice thing is then it's all the same data. It's
Right.
not like like you said, if you're putting it individually into all these different platforms,
Yeah.
sometimes you can upload the wrong description or something's misspelled, all that stuff. And so if it's just being sent out to all the different places from one place, then it's so much easier.
Yeah, and it's better than having to mess with 10 different spreadsheets or 20 different spreadsheets. I've talked to publishers before who they're spending 10, 20 hours a week trying to manage data in all these different spreadsheet formats or even create Onyx files manually and stuff like that. That's something that should be automated and can be through tools like Eloquence on Demand.
Yeah, well, I think especially a lot of like publishers who are just starting out, it's things like title management and then royalties. And, you start getting more and more successful and you're like, this is amazing, but then you have less time to make books because you're doing all this work that's just this admin stuff. And it's,
Yep.
yeah. So I know you all have some excellent, services, and then there's other companies for the royalties. And so, yeah, it can really help with metadata. All right, let's jump on to the idea of good metadata.
Yeah.
It can help or hurt your chances of showing up in Amazon search engines. So I want to see, can you explain how does metadata play a factor in Amazon's search algorithms?
Yeah, and all of this will apply regardless of how you get your data into Amazon. So whether you're doing it through KDP or doing it through Vendor Central or anything in between, the way Amazon search works, the search algorithms on Amazon works, is their system is looking at certain data elements and using that to help put the book into search results. The key elements they use are the title of the book, the author's name, the keywords, and the categories. Now, what's important I didn't mention in that list is the book description. Amazon's search algorithm doesn't use the book description as a source of data for search. So if you have special words that you're using, key phrases that you're using, you need to make sure that those are put into the keywords section on the in the Amazon data so that that's actually indexed for search. And the other important thing to remember about this too is that Amazon's search algorithm is going to be based on what people are also searching for. There's a lot of other variables that are taken into account. So when you're coming up with keywords, and we could talk more about keywords specifically, but when you're coming up with keywords and you're trying to figure out how to put your data in a way that makes sense, you want to think about all the different ways that people might search for your kind of book and kind of take into account the language that they would use as well.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to next ask about is picking the best keywords for your book. So it can be a little overwhelming because you can think, okay, my book is a fiction. Okay, that's very broad.
Yeah.
My book is a mystery thriller. Still very broad. So how do you figure out what are the keywords that people are going to type in for your book that'll make your specific book show up?
Yeah, and it's a really difficult question sometimes because, like you said, you have to try to figure out how are people going to search for this, and I think that's the real key. If you understand your audience really well, then you'll do a better job of picking the right keywords or even writing a good book description. So my recommendation typically for a publisher who's trying to figure out keywords and how to explain a book, go look at, first of all, other comp titles, other titles of other books in the Amazon marketplace or other stores, and read the reviews of those books. How do people describe that book? A common example I use in the situation is if you're writing a crime novel and it's about a detective, a hard-boiled detective, kind of guy or something. You don't want to use language that doesn't make sense. Like most consumers are not going to go type into Amazon noir noir fiction. That's not necessarily a term they're going to use, but they might say hard boiled, or they might say, a police story or police detective story or something like that. So you want to use the language that they would use. To learn that, go look at places where people write reviews. So go look at NetGalley, go look at Amazon's reviews, go look at Barnes and Noble reviews, go look at Goodreads, read what people are saying about similar books. And then from that, you can kind of get a feel for the language they use. You can also use AI for this purpose in some ways as well. So, you're not going to give your book content to AI and have it generate keywords. Most people would say that's probably a bad idea, especially just generative AI. But you can go to ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other AI tools and say, hey, I'm writing a book about this topic. Maybe give it your book description even, and say, give me some suggested keywords, and then use the prompting mechanisms to help you kind of refine those. It's not going to give you the exact keywords you should use for everything, but it's going to give you some ideas. And that's all you're looking for, is to try to get good ideas for what kind of language is going to work. Another good source to look at is Amazon search itself. If you go to the Amazon store and you go to the book search, so click on the little drop down there next to the search window and click book, then start typing something that's similar to a keyword you're already using. You'll see in the autocomplete other searches that people are actually using on the Amazon store, and searches that have been successful for people. So take advantage of that and say, okay, I'm starting to type in detective, and what other kind of words might show up in that autocomplete that might be useful for me to also use. Another thing about keywords too is you can't, it's not one and done. You can't make your keyword changes and then come back 5 years from now and make some more keyword changes. Keywords are one of those things that you need to play with. Put some keywords in, see what's working, try some other ones, see if that changes anything. Do you get better sales if you have keywords in a certain way, or these other keywords? Another cool thing to think about too is how you build your keywords into your marketing plan. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing a marketing plan, I'm running some sort of advertisement, or I've got another, some author tour or something else I'm doing, what kind of language am I using for that specific marketing plan? Make sure that those same keywords are put into the keyword fields in Amazon and other stores as well, so that you have those words matched up. So when people are searching, they're more likely to see your book as a result of using the same kind of language you're using in your marketing or advertising.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to try for my books to put in a keyword, best book ever. And then people will be like, it said it. I was looking for the best book and it just showed up. So I want to ask about categories, because you mentioned that too. And that's something that is very interesting on Amazon, because they have a lot of these niche categories. So I'm wondering, is it better to pick something very niche or broader for your categories?
Yeah, I would say the primary category should always be the most niche you can get. If your book is able to be drilled down into one of these categories, go as deep as you can, make that the primary category. For your secondary categories, and you can have 3, so for the second and third, go ahead and pick ones that are similar or that relate in some other way. But they don't have to be as specific. They can be a little higher up. But you also, again, just like keywords, you want to play around with categories sometimes as well. If your book is rated number 5,000 or 10,000 in a category, it's never going to get seen, right? People don't drill down that far into that category. And the category ranking is all based on sales. So this is related to how many books you're actually selling as well. But if you can compete better in a different category, then make sure your book is in that other category. Go look at the other categories and say, well, the top 20 books in this category, my book actually has a better basic book sales rank than these other titles, and it still fits in this category well. It's not, it's not a stretch to say it would be in that category. Let me put it in that category instead and see if it does better in that category.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Well, I talking about being broad, I did want to ask, in general, what are some mistakes you see publishers making with metadata? You work with this all the time. You talk to publishers, and what do you normally have to tell them? Hey, you should do this instead.
Not giving enough. That's probably the thing I see the most. A lot of publishers and authors don't put enough metadata in their keywords fields or in their book description field. There's been a lot of research about this over the years. There've been studies that have been done by Nielsen in the US and the UK, the Panorama Project. There's a bunch of other studies that have been done. And if people are interested in seeing those studies, I'm happy to provide them to anybody that wants them. But the research shows that when you have more content in things like your book description or your keywords fields, you're more likely to get people finding your book and purchasing your book. So I would recommend expand your book description. Don't make it just one little paragraph. Make sure you have, the average, the number of words is about 200 to 300 words is what's recommended for a book description. Make sure that it's not just one big block of text either. Put it into paragraphs or bulleted lists or numbered lists. Give some sort of structure. Remember that the human eye is going to very quickly scan something, and you want to make sure that you're drawing the eye to the key points in that book description. Same thing for keywords. Maximize the number of keywords you're allowed to give. In the KDP system or Ingram Spark, you can get 7 different keywords fields, but maximize the number of words in each of those fields. Don't just put one word in each of the fields. Put as many words as you can fit, and make sure you're taking advantage of the space that you're given. I'd also say just think broadly about adding more different types of content. So if you're able to provide a book excerpt, that's another great way to make more content for your book searchable and visible. Stores like Barnes & Noble will show a book excerpt on the product page. If you have a nonfiction book, putting a table of contents can be helpful. And sometimes, again, you're limited based on your relationship with these partners as to what kind of form fields you're able to fill out or provide. But if you provide the data, if you're able to get the data into the supply chain, say to Ingram or sometimes to Bowker, that'll often make its way through and kind of end up on different stores as well. So just create as much content as you can about the book, as much information as you can. Make sure that that information is kind of well formatted, it looks good, and then put it into as many places as you can, because more is usually better when it comes to data mining and the way search algorithms work.
Thank you. That's very good advice. You mentioned sales rank, so I do want to make sure we talk about that. So it's interesting. I remember when my first novel came out and it showed up on Amazon. It was in one of the niche categories and it was like #1. And I was like, oh my God, I think I just sold 1 million books. That's it. I'm quitting everything. I'm done. And then you dig a little deeper and you're like, oh, I think this is not necessarily just book sales. So can you explain what are the things that determine things like #1 in the category? How much does sales versus other aspects factor into all that?
Yeah, and being #1 in a category is a great thing. That's a marketing point there for sure. So definitely take advantage of that when you can. The book rank on Amazon, the sales rank on Amazon, is an algorithm that they keep it kind of proprietary, but we've kind of figured out over the years kind of how they generally come up with that number. It is based on what's called sales velocity. So what this means is if I sell 1 copy of my book today, and the next time I sell a book isn't until 2 weeks from now, I don't have a good velocity on those sales. If I sell 5 copies of my book today and I sell the next copy 2 weeks from now, I also don't have a good sales velocity because I still am only doing sales one day and then skipping 2 weeks to get to the next sale. So what you want to kind of see, and the way sales rank, especially in the main books category on Amazon, the way that algorithm works is to say, if you can make a sale today and another sale tomorrow and another sale the day after, that's good velocity. That's showing that people are coming to the store, they're looking for that book, they're buying that book. That's going to also impact the visibility of the title, which then there's a little bit of a flywheel effect that you get with this kind of thing. So what you want to do in order to increase sales, the sales rank on Amazon, is try to build your marketing and advertising campaigns around the idea of sales velocity. So when your book goes live and you're now selling the book and the book now has a sales rank, make sure that your marketing is kind of built in such a staggered way that kind of gets people to come to the store today and then tomorrow or the day after that, and try to build a staggered campaign. So if let's say, for example, you're doing an email campaign to a bunch of people who follow you, don't do it all at once. Send the email out today to 200 people and then tomorrow or the next day to another 200, and kind of stagger that so that the response is staggered as well, and that builds that velocity. Same thing for other marketing that you might do. If you're building a marketing campaign, don't do it all, dump it all at once. You want to put it out there and kind of trickle so that you get more people. A really key thing with this, though, is that sales rank is not just sales velocity. It's also based on conversion rate and whether people are looking at the book and actually buying it. What you don't want to do is have a lot of people go and look at the book and never purchase it, because that means that your marketing was ineffective, and Amazon's algorithm is going to pick up on that. They look at the number of people that click through to that page and say, well, if only 5% of these people are buying the book when they got there, they didn't like the content after having seen it from whatever. So it's going to downrank your book. So you want to make sure that, again, the marketing fits with the book description, the description makes sense and it's, sellable. The image looks really good. You've got additional images. And that's another thing that kind of comes into play with the search engine rank of your book, or kind of where your book shows up in search, and therefore how it's affected by the sales rank. If you don't have enough images for your book, Amazon's algorithm will downrank your book. So you actually need to have more than just a cover image. I would always recommend adding interior shots if there's any kind of content in your book that makes sense of a cookbook or something highly designed. Make sure there's interior shots. If you don't have that, if it's a novel or something, you can use a marketing kind of style shot where put the book on a table and take a picture of it in a nice setting. Or there's tools to do this kind of stuff. There's even AI stuff now that you can use for that. But you want to get more than one image, preferably 3, 4, or 5 images even of your book, and have those available as part of your data, because that's going to help the sales rank. And if you're doing A+ content, that's another thing that's going to help Amazon. Amazon says that titles, products with A+ content sell between 5 and 12% more than titles without. So you want to make sure you have A+. Those are all things that are going to help the sales rank. But again, sales rank is going to be based on a lot of different factors, and a lot of it has to do with how people are coming to the book, how they're finding it, and whether they're actually purchasing that book and how frequently you're getting purchases.
Yeah, well, I do want to get to Amazon A+ content. I wanted to ask, because I'm thinking about our members and they ask about pre-orders. But, the idea of pre-orders is that everyone bought it, and then the day that your book publishes, then, there's no velocity there because they all bought it, and then it just doesn't show up that day. So how does that factor into the sales rank? I mean, does it hurt you if you could have told those people to come over the first 2 weeks or something?
No, it's my understanding that it doesn't. I mean, part of the benefit here is that as Amazon sees the pre-orders coming in, that's affecting the visibility and the discoverability of your book too. So if you have pre-orders available for 4 months and people are coming every couple of days and doing a pre-order, that's essentially the same thing as having the sales velocity. That's going to have an impact on Amazon making that book more visible, and also on Amazon potentially ordering more copies. If you do an imprint run, it's not available as POD. Amazon's going to know, okay, this book has, 200 pre-orders or 1,000 pre-orders or 10,000 pre-orders. They're going to be ordering more copies to be able to fulfill those at the beginning, and that's going to have an impact on their rankings and their algorithm and how the algorithm sees it. So while you don't technically have a sales rank, quote unquote, at the point of pre-orders during pre-order sales, it's still going to have an impact on the algorithm. And what you don't want to do though is then kind of cut off everything at the end of that. On the pub date, now we have no marketing happening, we have no advertising happening. Take advantage of that kind of pre-built boost that you're going to get, and make sure your marketing kicks in and is continuing past the pub date, and you have people still coming into the title and buying the title after that.
Okay. And so you mentioned Amazon A+ content, and it's images, videos, things of that nature. So I do want to ask, what works well? So, like with a video, I mean, like an author could just, record themselves talking about the book, but is that good? I mean, is that something people come to the page and go, cool, I want to hear this author talk about their book?
Well, it might depend on the author. It might depend on what the book is about too. If it's maybe a complex nonfiction title that needs a little bit of explanation, a video might be a really great way to make that understandable to the audience. Think about your audience. If it's a nonfiction title, it's different than a fiction title. If it's a novel, you probably don't want to have the author talking about the book because it's not going to be as effective. You may want to have some book trailer or some other kind of story-driven video of some kind, or even just visual video of some kind if there's kind of a world-building aspect of the book. I would say think about the content related to the audience and what is that audience gonna be interested in. Go look at comp titles. Go look at other titles and say, well, what do they have? Is that an effective use of the author's time or effective use of the marketing budget to go build a video in the first place? It might be that you're better off just using images because, video is hard for people to engage with. If I'm sitting there on my phone and I don't have my earbuds in, I'm probably less likely to click on a video just because I don't want to have the sound up. So there's reasons why you might want to avoid video altogether. It's really a question of what's most effective for the audience that you're trying to reach to.
Yeah, and so you can have images, and like you said, I agree. Like one of the things, like immediately I thought about is the idea of like a novel, and I'm like, I don't have images in the book. It's like a story, it's text. So, but you said you can take different pictures of the cover and things of that nature. I know, like also that like just like you said, marketing materials that are sales. But I do think, don't they have like rules, like you can't have too much text? Is that right? Or what are the guidelines of what you're allowed to have?
Yeah, on the Amazon images that go
Mhm.
in the image area, there are some limitations on how much text you can have and things like that. And I would say always look at Amazon's requirements or written requirements for that kind of detail. But the key is to have good images, and this might be something to consider if you're working with an artist to come up with the cover design. Have them help you come up with the extra images that are in the same genre, the same kind of field and world idea or whatever. Have them help you come up with some of that extra artwork you can then use in different ways on your A+ pages or on your extra images. Have a kind of a collection of other images. Again, if you're on a limited budget or you're trying to figure out how do I do this in a different way, you could potentially use some AI for this. There are some tools out there like Midjourney that can help you generate images. Be very careful of obviously the AI usage and stuff like that. Make sure you're being very clear about that in your and wherever you need to be. But the point being that there are sources for kind of making these kinds of things. I would even say Canva is a great solution for authors and publishers. We use it extensively at Firebrand, even for our marketing, because it has a lot of built-in templates and it has these, just really easy way to generate the kinds of images that you might need for an A+ page or for that extra image in the image content. And so there's a lot of ways to generate this stuff without it being a really heavy lift. And there's different ways to think about the book without having to, the kind of the images of the book without having to go into a lot of extra, spending a lot of money on artwork or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, we don't have the time, but I do want to hit on Amazon advertising. We get a lot of members and indie publishers, author publishers asking about it. So I guess maybe just a general question about, any tips on Amazon advertising that you can give to help people, succeed with it.
It's only as effective as the keywords you're creating, the keywords you're putting in. So, like every other pay-per-click advertising that's out there, make sure that you're using it sparingly and doing what's actually useful and testing and not just doing it and setting it and forgetting it. You want to make sure that you're actually seeing the impact and that the conversion rate after someone clicks through from that ad is going to be is going to be a good conversion rate. So if you see people clicking through, but you're not seeing sales, then you definitely want to change the keywords and try something else. I would play around with that and also play around with other advertising options as well. It's not just Amazon advertising. There's reasons to, go and do other Google ads or other kinds of things. Again, where is your audience? If your audience is on Facebook or on Instagram or wherever else, look at other advertising options as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so I do want to talk about, before we end, the new benefits that you all at Firebrand are going to be offering IBPA members. We're always grateful, companies like yourself creating amazing products, and our members get discounts on various things, and it makes it so much easier for them to have access to sometimes things that they wouldn't normally. So let's talk about Eloquence on Demand and Eloquence on Alert, whichever one you want to start with. Tell us what they do, what they are, and then what the new benefits are going to be.
Yeah. We're excited about this at Firebrand because we get to offer benefits to the IBPA, which we haven't ever been able to do before. So Eloquence on Demand is our metadata delivery service. So like I mentioned before, we take the product data that you put into our application. We have a kind of a database that you log into and put the data into. And that data then gets distributed to all the different partners that you have. So if you have a publisher account at Barnes and Noble, or you have a publisher account over at Kobo, or you have a publisher account somewhere else, we're going to send that data where it needs to go. And we can also send the data to some partners like Bowker that just take data from everybody. So we'll send the data as broadly as we're able to within the kind of confines of what kind of accounts you have. Again, for Eloquence on Demand, typically, the service is more effective for publishers who have about 50 titles or more. So if you're really small, you might not actually be a good fit. And if you're only putting your data out and your books out in Ingram Spark or KDP, then unfortunately, we can't put any kind of automation around that, so Eloquence on Demand doesn't work for that either. But that's a great tool for publishers who are on the move, that are growing, and they've got, especially if you're dealing with a bunch of spreadsheets or something, and you want to put your data in one place and have a easily accessible database of your data and send it where it needs to go. And there's a 10% discount for IBPA members for the Eloquence on Demand service. And then Eloquence on Alert is a completely different service, and it's actually a tool that goes out to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Apple and a bunch of other places, bookshop.org, and pulls back information about your books and alerts you when things are wrong on those sites. So for example, if you're having a problem with third-party sellers taking the buy box, that's something that we're tracking. If you're worried about the price being incorrect, or you're just trying to see how many reviews am I getting on my books, or I want to see when things are happening. Is my cover image incorrect? Do I have A+ content on that book? Did something happen and book just disappeared off of the stores? The Eloquence on Alert system will go out and do all of that. Now we're in kind of a little early here, but give you a sneak peek. At the beginning of March, we'll be relaunching and kind of coming out with some updates to Eloquence on Alert that will allow anyone to sign up, use a credit card to sign up, and it's as low as $50 a month. So $49.95 or whatever a month. So you can sign up, you can put your books into the system, you can track them on a daily basis, you can track them on a weekly or monthly basis, or even annually. And it's a really great way to watch your titles in the marketplace and ensure that you're not missing issues and opportunities. And again, IBPA members will get a 10% discount with that, and we'll have the code available on the website.
Yeah, we are. I mean, again, having access to these tools is something that IBPA is focused on. Is, we know these tools are out there, and sometimes, like you were mentioning, sometimes smaller publishers, it's difficult for them to have the capital to afford some of these really amazing tools. And we just appreciate that you all are going to be offering this. We're going to be getting them on the site soon. Just keep your eyes out. We're again excited about that. And just to throw this out there, by the way, we have the IBPA NetGalley program.
Yes, we do.
And Firebrand, your whole team, you all also have under the same umbrella as NetGalley. So, yes. And that's a review program, and that's really a very popular program. So I want to make sure to throw that out there as well. So look, we are just barely over time. I just want you to know, Joshua, I mean, you've been connected to IBPA for a while, and you really helped us out. Thank you so much. And I mean, again, I'm sitting here like, I didn't do that. Okay, I got to go back and do my A+ content. I know these are things that we all should be doing better at. I think metadata is this term that sometimes scares people off, but it's so key to the success of your book. Yeah. So thanks for just kind of giving some tips about like how to make it better.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure everybody checks out Firebrand Technology Services, because you all do other things as well. Go to firebrandtech.com, firebrandtech.com. And also, we hope you will join IBPA. We just mentioned we have those benefits. We have NetGalley program. We have tons of other amazing benefits. We hope you'll join us. It's IBPA-online.org. And also, I hope you'll continue to listen to this podcast. You could subscribe to it. It drops the last Thursday of every month. Joshua, grateful for you. And I'm excited to be, again, this is the first time that anyone's finding out about it. So I'm excited for everyone to be hearing about this. And thank you again for everything.
Thank you.